Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brianna and this is 4 Paws in a Book. I make book and lifestyle related content, so if that's something that you're interested in, make sure that you hit the subscribe button down below. Today we are going to be talking about the 23 books that I want to read in 2023. Obviously I'm going to be reading more than 23 books in 2023. But these ones are specific that I want to pick out. This is a big trend that's been going around. It goes around every year. 20 books to read in 2020, 21, but you know what I mean. Okay, we do it every year. This is a very large stack of books. As I was putting them all together, I was like,
well, this was a choice.
But I have three piles here. We have some contemporary romance. Weirdly enough, not very many of them. And I think it was just because I was trying to step out of my comfort zone. I think a lot of this project, the whole goal of it is to step out of your comfort zone a little bit. I'm trying that. I have some thriller and horror books, and then a very large stack of fantasy books. So we should have a lot of fun. There's not going to be any stipulation to this. I'm not unhauling books if I don't read them. If they don't get done, they don't get done. But we're gonna try. These are all books that I physically own. Another project that I'm really trying to do this year is read down my physical TBR, take that number down from its very large number to a more, easily achievable number. We're just gonna start. I've broken these up into genres. I'll have timestamps down below if you're only interested in one of the 3 categories. But we're gonna start with the romance and contemporary books because that is the smallest pile. First up, we have The Worst Best Man by Mia Sosa. This is definitely a book that I want to get to as quickly as possible. I read The Wedding Crasher in 2022 and absolutely loved it. It made one of my best books of the year. So I want to read some more books that she has. She has this. She also has some indie books that sound very interesting, but this is the other one that I have physically on my shelf. And I believe it also has Brazilian family members, which is one of the things that I really loved about The Wedding Crasher. This has an enemies to lovers trope, which is always fun. It also takes place at a wedding, I assume. And I've heard very mixed reviews about this one. Some people really love it, and some people don't like it as much as The Wedding Crasher, so we will see where I fall. I probably will not be going into great detail about all of these books because obviously there are 23 of them, and some of them are very well known on BookTube, so I probably won't. Next up is one of the very few YA books that I have left on my shelves, specifically contemporary. So that's Ophelia After All by Raquel Marie. Raquel used to be a booktuber. She hasn't posted in years. Once she got traditionally published, I think she stopped posting videos. I actually got to meet her at BookCon in 2019 when she was still a booktuber. We were in line to meet V. Schwab at the same time. And so that was really cool. And I, for some reason, haven't read this book. I pre-ordered it. And I still haven't read it. Everyone has wonderful things to say about it, but I just haven't. But I do have a project in mind for this, so it will be read early in the year. I definitely gave myself a little bit of a pass this year with these books. A lot of these books I have projects for, so I know that I will be reading them. I already have plans set in place. There was no way that I would be able to have such a large stack here, especially with all the fantasy, without plans in place to read them. So I did give myself a little bit of a pass. Next up, I want to read Built to Last by Erin Hahn. This is a second chance friends to lovers romance, so that sounds like a great time. There's also a home renovation show in here, and I think that those are so much fun. This one got a lot of buzz on Twitter a few months ago, and I'm just here for the hype and the drama, to be honest. And then a couple that are not really romances. We have Britt Marie Was Here by Frederick Bachman. I used to be obsessed with Frederick Bachman's books, but it has been years since I have read one. And this is the last one that I physically own that I have not read yet. So I would like to fix that. This is about a prim and proper, but yet socially awkward woman who doesn't really let anyone in. She left her husband who was unfaithful. She moves to this little town, and she needs to connect to the neighbors and the people around her, but she doesn't really want to. I really feel like this is going to be definitely in the same vein of A Man Called Ova, which is one of my favorite books by him. So we're going to see if this one gets read. And then lastly, the only Taylor Jenkins Reid book that I have not read is Carrie Soto's Back. This was her 2022 release, and I pre-ordered it and then never got to it. And a lot of people really loved it this year, so I have high hopes for it. But it is, it's just been sitting on the shelf, just staring at me. So we're going to read it in 2023. Okay, now let's talk about some thrillers and horrors. We'll start with the horrors first because there's only a couple of them. The first one is The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. I read White Smoke by her last year and really, really enjoyed it. And then everyone was talking about this one, saying that it was even better than White Smoke. So I definitely want to read this one. Obviously, I probably won't until the spooky season, but this one will probably be at the top of my October TBR list. And then I'm also adding From Below by Darcy Coates, but I'm actually going to just put Darcy Coates on here. I just want to read a Darcy Coates this year because I feel like everyone is reading Darcy Coates. And I feel like once I read one of her books, I will want to read all of them. This one is the one that it probably intrigues me the most just because it is like underwater horror, and it's like a dive team that like is trying to like find an old shipwreck or something like that, which just sounds fascinating. There's a lot of psychological elements to underwater horror that I really enjoy. So this is the one that I'm putting on the list. However, any Darcy Coates will do. I'm also very interested in Gallows Hill, which I think is her newest release, and that one takes place at like a haunted winery, which also sounds fascinating. Then one of the books that has probably been on my TBR the longest, and honestly, I have no excuse as to why this book is still on my TBR. But If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio is a dark academia. It is about a group of theater students that like, there's a lot of Shakespeare involved with it. And there's like a murder and then a reunion. And then they're trying to figure out who did the murdering 10 years ago, something like that, if I remember correctly. I want to say that I purchased this in my very first book outlet haul, which would have happened in 2018. And I still haven't read this book. And that is just inexcusable because this is apparently a literary masterpiece. And I would like to be part of this hype train. So we're going to read this in 2023. Another one that I wanted to be on the hype train for is The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. This is a book that made a lot of people's favorite books of 2022. It has a lot of dark, triggering themes. It's I think about a woman escaping a cult. But beyond that, I know very little, and I kind of want to go into it blind. I have asked a friend for specific triggers. I said, is this in here? She's like, no. I was like, okay, good. We're good then. Other than that, I want to kind of go into it blind. All right, and then 2 books on here just because I'm an absolute completionist, and we want to finish things in 2023. First off, Survive the Night by Riley Sager is the only Riley Sager book that I have not read, so I want to read this book before his new release comes out. So then that way I can say that I've read his entire backlist. And I skipped this one because when it came out, no one really liked it. So I do not have great expectations for this book. I do not have high hopes for this book. I think it will be a middle of the road book at best. But I want to say that I've read them all because I own them. They're all sitting right here, but I haven't read this one. And then lastly for the thrillers is The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the 3rd book in the Inheritance Games trilogy, and I read the first 2 very early on in 2022. It was like January, February that I read them. And then I never picked this up, even though I pre-ordered this book, got it back in August. I never finished the series, so we're going to be doing that very early in the year. Now we have the overwhelming pile of fantasy and sci-fi. I've kind of put them together because that's how we did this, okay? Like I said, I do have a lot of projects for a lot of these books. Some of them will look familiar to you. First up, we have Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I want to read this entire trilogy before the season 2 show comes out on Netflix. I think that I'm going to be buddy reading this with Kay in February. We haven't really like set plans for it, but that's the idea. That's the plan. This is a very hyped YA fantasy. It's kind of older, but I do want to binge this whole series. And then that way, I've watched season 1. Had I read the books then? No. So I want to read these books and then rewatch season 1 and then go into season 2. That's the idea here. We have Into the Drowning Deep by Myra Grant. I've had this book for several years and have not picked it up yet. This is the pen name for Shauna Maguire. A lot of people were reading this during the spooky season, and you got me re-hyped for it, so it's on this list. But this is like Killer Mermaids. Another one that kind of falls into that underwater horror, but I think this one has a lot more sci-fi elements to it, which is why it's in this pile. But I think it kind of will connect to From Below. Also, Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. The reason why I'm putting this book on here is because on more than one occasion, I have almost purchased the next book, but I haven't read this one yet. And I don't want to purchase another book until I read this one. So that's why this is going on this list, so that I know, do I like the series or can I just unhaul it? But this has like necromancy. It's like this takes place on another planet. I don't really know anything about this, to be 100% honest. But here we go. It's also sapphic. That's a plus. Another book that I've had for way too long and haven't read yet is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This is a time travel type book where she ends up getting like travels back in time to the 1800s as a Black woman, which is not a great place for her to be. And I've just heard fantastic things about this book, and I've had it for years and I never picked it up. So definitely going to be doing that this year. I own the whole trilogy here, and so this is definitely going to be one that I try to maybe binge. I don't know. The 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. Here's the thing. Kayla from Books and Lala had this as her best book of the year, and she doesn't read fantasy. So that gives me a lot of hope for this. That I will enjoy it, that I will love it. It has a lot of elements, some buzzwords that I think will be interesting. It's kind of end of the world apocalyptic. There's a lot of weather related issues. And it's like, you know, the 5th season. Well, you know, I don't know. I honestly know very little about the particulars of this book. The back gives you absolutely nothing. But this is the way that the world ends for the last time. And that sounds truly fascinating. So we're going to read this. We have A History of Wild Places by Shea Earnshaw that I got in Book of the Month in December of 2021. So I've had it for a while. And I've heard really good things about this. I've heard not so great things about this too. Some people have given it 1 star. Some people have given it 5 star. There's kind of no in between there. And Shea Earnshaw, I really want to like her stuff, right? She has very atmospheric writing. She has very like strong world building, but then it's like her characters that are not super great. So I'm really hoping that in an adult context, this book will do better for me. I'm really hoping for that. Next up, a book that I absolutely must read early in 2023 is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I know so many people that love this book, and I want to be one of them. I feel like this is going to be a book that I'm going to love. It has a lot of buzzwords. It's very academic setting. It's a very much a character study, and like the world building sounds fantastic. All of these things lead me to believe that I'm going to love this book. Will I? I don't know. We'll see. Okay, I also have The Archive of the Forgotten by A.J. Hackwith. This is the 2nd book in the Hills Library series. I actually really want to just reread the entire series, like reread the first one and then binge the whole series. But I read that back in 2020. I read The Library of the Unwritten, and I haven't picked anything up since. So this is me putting that series on this list. But Hell's Library series is about all of the books that never get finished get put into this library in Hell, and the librarian has to like watch over them. And then in the first one, a character escapes the library, kind of starts wreaking havoc. It's a good time. And I loved the first book, and then I never continued on. Okay, I'm also putting Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, but I'm also putting this one on with the caveat of I just want to read a Brandon Sanderson, because I actually think that Elantris should be the one that I start with. I don't really know. I haven't read any of Brandon Sanderson's adult work. So let me know down in the comments below where I should start. Is it Mistborn, or do I start in another area? I don't know, because I know that it's all one big universe. But where do I start? So we're just going to put this like placeholder of a Brandon Sanderson book on this list so that I can read this book. The last 3 books will complete series, or will like at least have me caught up on series in case that there is a 2023 release for them. First one is Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn. This is the 2nd book in the Legendborn series, which is a young adult Arthurian retelling that's kind of gender bent. Legendborn was amazing. I read it in 2021. I do want to reread it before reading this one, just because I don't remember a lot of what happened. It's been 2 years, but I do want to get to this one sometime in 2023. Also, Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston. This is the 2nd book in the Amari and the Night Brothers, and I really wanted to pick this one up early in 2022 when it came out, or summer of 2022 when it came out, and I didn't. It's a middle grade fantasy with like a magic school, and the first one was fantastic. I don't know why I didn't just immediately go and pick this up, but we're going to this year. And lastly, Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. This will complete the Daevabad trilogy, and I really want to complete a bunch of series this year. So that's why we're putting this one on here. Is she a chunker? She's scary, but I have no doubt that I'm gonna love this. I absolutely love City of Brass. It made one of my best books of the year, so I need to just finish out this trilogy. All right, those are the 23 books that I want to read in 2023. Let me know down below which one you are most excited for me to read, and we'll talk to you down there. That is all I have for you today. If you are new here and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little red button that you can do so down below the video. If you'd like to hang out with me more, the links to my Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads, and my Patreon are linked in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!